Okay, hi, we're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Stacey Knoell, and I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. It has finally happened due to unforeseen circumstances. The guest that I had lined up today was unable to make it, and I was like, "Oh, what do I do? Do I cancel? Do I just go on?" Well, obviously, I opted to just go on and to have a little bit of a chat about just some issues that continue to cross my desk, really. And so I thought I'd bring them to here because I think it's important to say these things to the Black community. And it all revolves around civic engagement. And I think, well, I don't think I know. There's a lot of times I've been at different rallies. In fact, I was at a rally this morning. I went to a couple rallies this morning over at the State House, having to do with bodily autonomy. And then I went to the one for the deaf and hard of hearing, because some of you may know that in my past life, I was a sign language interpreter at Blue Springs South High School. So I still pay attention to issues that relate to deafness and hard of hearing and how policies impact that community. But civic engagement amongst the Black community is sort of what I was going to talk just ever so briefly about. And I think what a lot of it goes back to, right, if we have to chicken and egg this thing out, voting. And I've said several times before, voting rights is a continual issue in our community. If you go back to the civil rights era, Martin Luther King, a lot of things that people were marching for and rallying around was just getting us the right to vote, access to the ballot box. The way this country was originated, the only people who were allowed to vote were white landowning males. So it's interesting. This idea is voting a right or a privilege. Voting is a privilege. I'd love to think that voting is a right, but voting is a privilege. And what we're finding out is that if something is a privilege, that means that certain privileged people can take the privilege away from other people. And so I think it's imperative for our community to get out to vote in large numbers. Voter turnout. And here's the reason why. And I've said this before with a lot of guests that have come on this show. Candidates, campaigns, issues, a lot of the times the way that candidates, campaigns, or issue campaigns, not people campaigns, but issue campaigns reach out to the community is through knowing who's voting. And if a person is not voting, if a community is not voting, if a neighborhood or a precinct is not voting, candidates won't spend money to reach out. That's for darn sure. And issue campaigns don't know how to find people. And so I think it's very important that we, as a community, really wrap our heads around the need to turn out to vote in consistent numbers. Large numbers would be great, but consistent numbers. For example, there is an election every year. There are municipal, county, school board elections, for example, in 2023. We're getting ready to ramp up into another election cycle here in 2023. So it's not just every 4 years. So voting, I think, is a huge thing for our community. And all sides know that voting is important. That's why certain entities and certain sides are very keen on making sure to limit access to the ballot box, or to make it more difficult to vote, or to put restrictions on voting, or to make it easier to not count votes as they come in. So I think across the board, voting is something that I think our community needs to grab onto in a large way. I have been accused, interestingly enough, the time that I had someone from the Voter Network, it's a nonprofit, non-partisan agency, come on, I was accused of being partisan because I was talking about voting. I like to think about that for a second. If I'm just trying to encourage Black people across the board to turn out to vote, and that's being just the act of saying that makes people think I'm partisan. I don't think it is. But just to consider what that says about that accusation, that just encouraging people to vote is seen as partisan. So voting is something that I will continue to talk about. I've had Lindsay Ford with the Voting Network on several times. One of the things that her research has shown is that the best way to encourage people to vote is for you to talk to your friends about voting. So, for example, I made a list. I made a team. It was for whom the knell tolls, right? And I tracked 17 people at the primary last August, and I tracked 30 people at the general. And it's that kind of personal contact. It's that kind of work to get people engaged in the issues, to get people talking, up to date about the issues. Because I will tell you, having run a campaign, campaigns don't have the money to do that kind of in-depth 7 touches to someone who's not voting. So one thing you can do is vote. Please vote. Please make sure you're registered. Please make sure your friends are registered. Talk to people about getting a voting plan. Here's the next thing about civic engagement that I would like to encourage people to do is to pick a topic that's important to you. Not everyone is concerned about XYZ, right? Like I said, I went to a deaf and hard of hearing rally. They were having a rally today. That's because my background is working within the deaf community. So I was like, oh, I should go to that rally. I want to see what they're doing, pick up some brochures, talk to some people. Whatever topic is important to you, I will guarantee you that topic is looking for people to help in civic engagement. So whatever your topic is, if it's water rights, if it's whatever the topic is, I would say get engaged at that. And I can honestly tell you across the board, everyone's looking for volunteers. Everyone's looking for volunteers. The next thing is boards and commissions. I have had Dr. D'Angela Burns-Wallace, at the time she was Secretary of Administration, on to talk about the importance of boards and commissions. And just recently, within the last couple of months, I've had Melissa King. She's currently the head of appointments at the state of Kansas, to talk about the importance of getting people on boards and commissions. There are several boards and commissions that are not fully staffed or not fully stocked right now. And the Kelly administration has been very intentional about making sure that women and people of color are on boards and commissions. And every so often, someone will contact me and say, well, why hasn't Governor Kelly put more Black people on such and such? And I'm like, are they in the system? Because Governor Kelly, surprise, does not know every Black person in the state. So unless you get into the system, so when they go searching for people to put on boards and commissions, we have to be in the system. So, go back to our YouTube channel, find the one with either Dr. Burns-Wallace or Melissa King that talks about boards and commissions. People have sent me names and said, hey, can you, what about this board and commission? And honestly, I send the names to Melissa King because Melissa King is the one. She is the one. So I don't get people on boards and commissions, but Melissa King is the head of boards and commissions. So please think about that. So first civic engagement, you got to vote. Second civic engagement issue is to find some topic that is your passion. That way you will not get burned out and you'll continue to do it. Third thing to look at is that boards and commissions space. So, and boards and commissions go across the board, everything from transportation and water waste management to my board is an appointed board. So the African American Affairs Commission. The next way for people to get involved is on some campaign. And again, this does not mean a person. There are campaigns I can think of, like League of Women Voters does campaigns, right? Mainstream Coalition. There are a lot of things that do campaigns that don't have to be about backing a person. And there are a lot of campaigns that are in the 501c3 space, right? I can think of, there's climate initiatives, KIFA, Kansas Interfaith Action. There's a lot of groups that do the work it's not political work, right? Okay, so think about looking and getting involved with campaigns. Everyone across the board is always looking for volunteers. Completely, I can tell you, everyone's always looking for volunteers. And then yes, consider running for office. I think I go past thinking this. I know this. I know for a fact, if more Black people were involved in running for office, the political situation would look differently. It would look differently if more Black people were involved for running for office. And I don't mean just running for office. I think if more campaigns had Black people who were campaign managers or social media managers or volunteer coordinators, or just, we need Black people involved at every single level. Black treasurers, Black, people who know how to cut turfs for campaigns that are going on. So don't just think, gosh, I don't think I want to run for office. That doesn't mean you can't get involved. Find a candidate who represents your values and volunteer for their campaign. I can tell you they're looking for people to help on your campaign. And then, yes, I think more of us need to consider actually running for office. I have run for office. I ran for the Kansas State Senate in the 2020 election cycle. And it was interesting. Let's put it that way. People always said, are you having fun? And for a while, I said it was like a roller coaster. But then I decided that wasn't good, because you can walk up to a roller coaster and see what it's going to do and sort of decide if you want to get on that roller coaster. It was not a roller coaster. It was a walk through a haunted house is what it was. Okay, there's a question. Have you corresponded with every organization throughout Kansas? This is great information. Is there a plan being put in place for the Black communities around Kansas? The simple answer is no. I will tell you, I am actively trying to create a list of all the Black organizations in Kansas. And I'm quite frankly, I'm glad it's the Black Republican Council who's here, because I'm trying to reach just one side. I'm trying to reach all of the Black organizations. And I've just sort of slowly started to compile a list. That is because ever since I've gotten this job, oftentimes the question has come, how do we reach the Black community? And I don't mean, it's like when I first got hired, COVID was a thing. So it's like there's vaccine opportunities. How do we reach the Black community? Or it might be the Department of Commerce. I've had David Tolan on this show specifically to talk about money that's available for Black entrepreneurs. How do we reach the Black population? So I'm not just trying to reach Black Democrats. I'm trying to reach the Black population. And this message of civic engagement, I don't think is just limited to one political party either. Quite frankly, I think the Republican Party would do well if there were a bunch more Black people in it, because then it's about getting involved and representing what's important to us as our community. A lot of the issues that I'm dealing with, I don't feel are Republican or Democrat issues. If it's voting engagements, if it's boards and commissions, if it's entrepreneurship, if it's how to get money to the Black community so that we can pursue our dreams, those two things to me do not come down on political lines. I have found that I'm working a lot in the business space, and there is money available earmarked for the Black community. But then the question is, how do we get to the Black community? So please do. Let me get back to my notes. I just wanted to check, make sure. I'm glad I checked the chat. Otherwise, I would not have seen it because my notes are covering up the chat. So yes, consider running for office. School boards, city commissions. So it's not even about state office, right? I'm in Topeka and I pay attention to the Kansas state legislatures. And sometimes that place is a circus. But if you're like, I don't want to be involved in state level politics, there's always the county level. Sometimes people forget about the county level. There's county commissioners. Then there's the municipal level. There's city councils or city commissions. There's school boards. So I think if we as a community just got more engaged in general, it would help. It would help all these spaces, these boards and commissions, to think about things that they just aren't going to think about. I think sometimes it's easy for me. Let me just talk about me. It's easy for me to think, oh, well, if this person isn't thinking this, then, and to assume ill intent, to assume ill will. But having worked as a sign language interpreter, it means that I walk into spaces often thinking about how a deaf person would feel in this space. So I was at an event in Wichita. This was a couple months ago. And I was talking with a person and they were very upset. They were upset about, they were upset. They were upset about some different things. And why aren't people, doing this? And why isn't the person who was speaking, why aren't they going to address these issues? And I sat there for a while and I said, it's interesting. I think people only think about what they think about. Right. And I said, so look at this space. It was a luncheon. And I said, look at this space. I said, first of all, there's no sign language interpreter at this event. So if a deaf person was interested in this, they would be left out. And I said, look at these tables. The tables are all very close together. You know how it is in banquet. There's these rounds and the tables are very close together. So I said, if a person was in a wheelchair, this room would not be accessible. Right. Like I can weave my way through and get to the speaker and talk about an issue that's important to me, but a person in a wheelchair would not have that accessibility. And I said, look at this room. I said, the lights are kind of low. So if a person had limited vision, if they were trying to read the program or read the menu, they would struggle. And the person I was talking to was like, oh, wow, I didn't think of any of that. And I said, yeah, that's it. Like we only think about the things that we think about. So if there are rooms where decisions are being made, I've sort of decided it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do me any good to be mad at people for making decisions based on only what they know, if that makes any sense. Right? If you've only lived in one side of space your entire life, then you're going to make decisions based on that space. But it would take a person like me going in and saying, hey, do you have a sign language interpreter? Perhaps we should turn the lights up. Maybe we should make space in between the tables. So if a person is in a wheelchair, they can navigate it, because people only know what they know. So, some of these boards, commissions, city commissions, school boards, the Kansas legislature will make decisions to perpetuate what they know. Only if there's more diversity, only if there's more different voices coming in to talk about the situation, will things actually change? So please do consider running for office. And if not running for office, for supporting whatever issue that is important to you, because that's just the thing. I go to a lot of different rallies in the state house, or sometimes I'm just walking through to do something else, and there's people who are things are going on. And not often do I see Black people there, right? And I think part of it may be people are working during the day. Like, for example, when we had our Black Legislative Day, I will count that as a huge success. Holy mackerel. All of you who came, thank you. It was a huge success because we had over 100, we had about 150 to 160 people there. And how important is it just for us to be showing up in these spaces where decisions are being made? So if not just the generic Black Legislative Day, you know, whatever it is. I know a lot of us are involved in our churches. So get involved in our churches. I know a lot of us are involved in sororities and fraternities. Oftentimes the sororities and fraternities have a social engagement coordinator or a political engagement aspect to them. Maybe if we're involved in the NAACP. So, you know, there are a lot of groups that are doing work that benefits our community. And I would like to just encourage us to get as involved as possible. In a way, I think I'm probably preaching to the choir, because if you're paying attention to my little lunch and learn on a Monday, you're already active. So now go find somebody else to drag along. Okay. So that's all I was going to say. I managed to fill 16 minutes worth of time. I won't tell you who my guest is because I was just bummed that things didn't work out and they couldn't make it. But I do have someone lined up for next week. And hopefully I'll be able to reschedule with the person who was there for this week. Thank you, everybody. Make sure that you were signed up. Oh, I know I wanted to do. I want to take this opportunity to push our email update list. Our email. I'm going to put that in the chat. Please sign up for our email distribution list. A lot of times people say, well, I just didn't know, Stacey. I didn't know what you were doing. I'm like, well, did you read your email? I emailed it out. So sign up for email. Obviously, if you're already watching this, you know about this. All of these lunch and learns are archived on our YouTube channel. So please go check that out as well. And oh, if I was wise, I would have had the YouTube channel pulled up as well. I can get that. You know, where are we going? I don't have anything until 1 o'clock anyway. Got a little bit of time. So please, you can go back to our YouTube channel and watch all past episodes, all past installments, I don't know what I want to say, of our Lunch and Learns. They're there. Sign up for email. You already know about the Facebook. And I appreciate everyone paying attention. All right, everyone, I will see you next Monday. Bye.